Hello, Kaiser here. With the new Tower of Adversity reset earlier this week, there's been a lot of discussion with the trajectory of Wuthering Waves' endgame. The additions of Hazard Floors 3 and 4 and the difficulty within have polarized the community, with some praising the addition and some being cautious about WuWa's future. However, with one such video that recently hit the scene, maybe I can define some of those game design phenomenons such that the following discussion could be more clear. Powercreep is when a new character's kit shows an overshadowing performance over another, usually older character, such that the older character is not at all worth playing or investing into. Here's the blunt fact. Powercreep is in WuWa. Case in point, Carlotta and Lingyang. Lingyang was found dead in a ditch and Carlotta was the one who shot him. A meta shift occurs when the optimal state of play favors a certain character roster over others. In my opinion, this is the term that Smack should have used in that video, and a lot of issues would have been cleared up. This is most prevalent with WuWa's endgame modes having rotating effects, and then to a slightly less noticeable extent, roster completion. I want to first cover meta shift in regards to roster completion. New character releases, and also echoes in the form of gear, can bring lower tier characters back into meta relevancy. For example, GN's damage ceiling reaches greater heights with Chakona and the newly released Yuno, with Chakona's signature further increasing GN's ceiling with additional resistance shred. But I'll let you, dear viewer, be the judge of whether our general GN is still able to navigate the endgame, because you'd rather think it is his newfound harem doubling as his wheelchair. I mean, even if his team comp consisting of his hot-headed, bespectacled boyfriend and their adopted flower girl demands more skill or tech out of the player in order to secure clears, I personally think it is still a wonder that WuWa's first limited character is still alive and kicking nearly a year and a half into WuWa's release. Now getting to the more obvious element to meta shifts. Remember that one stacking attack buff on repeated liberation casts? Yeah, no one liked that one, because only the character it shilled could get more than 2 stacks of its effects. W Kuro for when they finally changed it. As for the current hazard zone, what I failed to hear get mentioned during that Saint Smack call was the blatant shill buff towards Augusta. The stacking 16% damage amplification that gets its duration refreshed with every shield application. Augusta benefits from the total 48% damage amp throughout almost her entire rotation, whereas Zani gets only 16% amp, maybe 32%, for 6 seconds depending on when Spectra Rover uses their liberation. This is also the same case with the Havoc Rover free-to-play comp. While all characters are able to leverage the shield that allows ignoring a 10% damage reduction stage effect, the benefit they get from that stacking 16% bonus amp is very short-lived. You're still refusing to take advantage of that stacking 16% amp. This is neither power creep nor meta shift. This is a brute forcing a clear. Now, a final nitty-gritty aspect to the meta shift phenomenon: matchups. Some bosses and even stage buffs discourage certain kits to be played out properly. The current Hazard Floor 4 features a stage buff that encourages maintaining a shield alongside extremely aggressive and likewise mobile bosses, which heavily discourage face-tanking hits. As such, Unga Bunga playstyle characters whose damage are locked behind a ticking timer or at the later stages of their attack rotations will naturally have a worse time fighting the bosses than characters with naturally mobile movesets or short damage sequences. Finally, HP inflation. This is one such artificial difficulty phenomenon to make any kind of content difficult by simply making it take longer to clear said content. I'll also take this opportunity to argue at least a portion of the WuWa is the new HSR take when it comes to the addition of Hazard Floors 3 and 4 compared to Memory of Chaos 11 and 12. From what I learned from a server-mate HSR player, the additions of Mach 11 and 12 are just additional stages with virtually the same environment as Mach 10. Perhaps it was different when it released, feel free to comment, but currently with tankier enemies. It is the same environment buff, with the same time limit of 10 cycles. Compare this to Hazard 3 and 4, which has a completely different slew of stage buffs compared to Hazard 1 and 2, as well as an additional 30 seconds to the timer. In addition, the lower clear times of such free-to-play or brute force teams in Hazard 3 and 4 can be explained by the nature of the ramping stage buff, which kicks in at 1 minute into the fight and maxes out at 2 minutes, starting 5%, capping off at 60% increased damage amp. I'm going to give Kuro the benefit of the doubt and see that they still try to make concessions for players of lower investments to get a clear. These differentiations, in my opinion, makes the WuWa HSR argument akin to comparing apples to oranges, and that makes the HP inflation argument here moot, as Hazard 3 and 4 now become the initial and sole data point for the content. Several months ago, I underwent the ordeal of scouring through YouTube's archives of early Tower of Adversity clears, screenshotting enemy HP bars in an attempt to record whether or not HP was increasing later into each patch. This was because those numbers posted on Hakushin, that same site I pulled Zenless Zone Zero's HP numbers from, was inaccurate for WuWa. For some reason or another, they took down most of their HP values, so maybe they're doing some kind of big update? The method I used came from my days in Destiny 2. Don't worry, I did that already. I'll cut to the chase. Because the End of Battle Carnage report did not accurately reflect the amount of HP a boss possessed, some genius players developed the Destiny Damage Tracker tool, which analyzed damage ticks compared to the number of pixels that were depleted from a boss's HP bars. For me, of course, there is human error involved due to the weird camera angles, possible lag time, or bugs from an HP bar depleting, or just plain video or screenshot quality, each making the recording of HP accurately next to impossible. While I was compiling these numbers though, I noticed a post that was circling around. I spent a bit of side time trying to track down where Dubstep Gun found this info, and with the help of a fellow chatter, I was led to this site from our Taiwan bros. My guess was right. WuWa has their HP values stored in separate data files. Someone had cracked the code that Hakushin couldn't. Base HP pertaining to the instanced fights in the Tower of Adversity, multiplied by a ratio that results in the HP value that you cut down in-game. But I was again missing that final piece. How did our Taiwan bro get the ratio? After weeks of more spare time trying to get to the bottom of it, I bit the bullet. Not just China, but Taiwan has my info now.
After all these years. Finally, we have them all.
My chart is now complete, with both HP values derived from pixel measurement and datamined values. So here's my assessment of the situation. The two side towers have settled into an extremely consistent HP valuation, having little to zero HP changed for the past 5 or so resets. Once at Union level 50, players can expect to 24 Dorito clear the side towers so long as their units are properly invested, and following proper rotation. For the past few Hazard 1 and 2 resets, HP has settled into a predictable HP range in regards to strictly the boss HP values. Hazard 1's HP values hasn't yet broken through the plus 72% mark compared to the launch of the game about 16 months ago at the time of recording. The boss HP of Hazard 2 has yet to break 59% inflation, and while its mob waves do fluctuate from time to time, it's as if Kuro is still experimenting with a triple wave setup featuring 2 waves of a solo or duo 3-cost mob each. That second TOA reset in patch 2.4, where there were 2 full squads of 1 and 3 costs? Yeah, it's less of sudden HP inflation and more of Kuro overwhelming the player with sheer numbers. A certain lawnmower could annihilate that reset easily. WuWa has a complex and deep combat system. Kuro does have an intended way for how one should play WuWa through their in-game tutorials, but theory crafters and other creative players will go on to discover ways to achieve and squeeze even more damage into their gameplay. I'll try to keep this brief, maybe I'll expand in a later video. There's the difference of rotation styles, something I call waterfall versus quick swap. Waterfall involves characters doing their rotation, outroing to the next character, and they do their rotation, outro, and so forth. Because at the end of the day, the game doesn't teach you how to quick swap, where each character does their rotation during another character's rotation, saving outro buffs for the most hard-hitting sections of their rotations. Next is animation cancels, which for a lot of characters, including Havoc Rover or Chikona, with dodge cancels and jump cancels respectively, where one will feel extremely clunky if you don't use them, while the other achieves completing their rotation at a blazingly fast speed. Thirdly is new discoveries with character kits and meta rotations. I say this specifically with those characters with seemingly outdated kits. Basically, if you are not playing by the new player discovered tech, you may as well decide that Powercreep has ended the life of these characters. The two poster children of such tech, Calcharo with his 3 or 4 Death Messenger rotation, and GN with his double Dragon Qinglong tech. If you are not using the tech, you will be seen as playing the character wrong by the whole community by now. But by learning the new tech, one can extend the longevity of a couple characters that suffer from the jank of Kuro's early WuWa character kit design. That's pretty much it for me. Power creep is in the game. HP inflation is in the game. These are factual statements. However, I'll repeat myself from my older TOA video. Power creep only becomes an issue when it becomes rampant, and the presence of imbalanced characters compels the devs to commit rampant HP inflation as a means to offset that character's game-breaking performance. This miscalculation of a character's performance, this unchecked power creep, that causes HP inflation to go out of control and punishes players into foregoing previous investments and pull out their credit cards for the shiniest new toy to continue clearing the endgame. And so again, I appreciate Kuro's devs for keeping power creep to a manageable level. It's 16 months into WuWa's lifespan, and while power creep will inevitably send our general into honorable discharge, his service is still ongoing at the time of this recording. If this isn't the sign of a competent balance team, I don't know how else to convince you. Except for whimpering wastes. That endgame mode has been quite the spectacular shipwreck. Anyways, I'll see you in Rinasita's grand finale. This is Kaiser signing out.